All right, so are you constantly thinking to yourself, man, this really just isn't working out how I wanted to, or man, I'm so tired of doing this. I'm so tired of doing this. I can't even believe I'm so tired of it. Hello, everybody. My name is Ryan. This is Ryan Talks. And today I wanted to talk about kind of living. I know I've done videos, at least one video about this before, about like living in other people's shadows. But I wanted to talk about this more because this is something that I have. There's two things that I have kind of battled with my entire life. This and something else. I'll talk about that more in other videos. I actually haven't talked about the other one in other videos. I don't think. But the one thing that I have always struggled, and I see a lot of people struggle with, is living underneath the thoughts of somebody else. You know, you come in here, you pop out, you got parents, you got grandparents, you got godparents, you got whatever it is. You know, maybe you had a legal guardian, maybe you were raised in a foster, whatever it is. You've got somebody that you were listening to because you were younger and somebody had to take care of you and you couldn't take care of yourself. So you had somebody taking care of you in most instances. And that person's thought process is going to be ingrained in you. And whether you like it or not. And so it's up to you to decide. And I know this is hard to do. You know, I've done drawings over the years. I probably should have brought them over here. I've done drawings over the years about, leaving the tribe and going your own way. And I think it's because it's something that has affected me, and I see it affecting people way worse than me. Like, it's hard for me to believe, but I see it affecting other people way worse than me. And so I wanted to talk about this. I know, I see this a lot. So, for instance, you go to work, if you have a regular job and you see a lot of the people just going through the motions. Like for me, it was the post office. You're just throwing mail, like throwing a case in mail. I'm gonna go out. I decided when I was 17, I was gonna come work at the post office, or 18, or my dad worked at the post office, so here I am. Or, it kind of reminds me of the show, The Bering Sea, the Pomerinkies. If you watch that show, that the father and son relationship is absolutely terrible. They don't get along at all, but they kind of like doing the same thing. So maybe that's not the best example, but you get this, right? You got people that doing the job because their parents did it, doing the job because, it pays the bills, doing the job because blah, blah, blah. And meanwhile, they're so good at something else. Like for me, like I'm really good at making computers or building computers. For me, I'm really good at talking in front of a camera with a microphone on. There's different things that I'm good at. There's different things that you're good at. And, a lot of people just won't do that. They're like, well, I can't make money on that. No, nobody makes money on that. Meanwhile, people make money on that every day. But it's your thoughts. It's your thought process on this. You have taught yourself in some manner that this can't work for you. This can't be done for you. You're different than everybody else. Well, the American dream is for other people, or whatever it is. You've got everybody's got this thought to themselves that they have taught themselves, whether it's from their parents, whether it's from their guardians, whether from, just going to school, wherever that came from, you have it, you bought into it, but you don't have to. You can get rid of it at any time. These thoughts that you have are something that you can change at any time, but people don't want to do that. They're so comfortable. And I agree, I like comforts too. And I don't terribly like change all that much. But until you get to that point where you can understand and love and adopt change, you're probably going to be stuck in a job that you hate for the rest of your life. And I talk about jobs most because I think if you polled a bunch of people, the majority of their irritation comes from a terrible relationship that they shouldn't be in, and that can actually be a job too. That's a relationship in ways. I mean, you're there more than you're with anybody else. So why be miserable most of your life? Everybody wants to idealize, the 50s or 60s and stuff like that, when the family units were a little different, and the dude went to work and the chick stayed at the house and did, the stuff there. And but if you really look at it, most men back in the day when they were doing this were miserable. They came home miserable. They drank a lot. And then they poured that onto their kids because they were doing stuff just to pay the bills, which is respectable. But there's so many other things that you could have done. these huge conglomerates wouldn't exist if it weren't for this mentality. These huge conglomerates, like these huge Targets or Walmarts or whatever of the world, these would not exist if people did what they did even when they first came over to this country after the Declaration was signed. Up until about 1820, people all had their own businesses. And up until the Industrial Revolution, people all had their own businesses for the most part. And maybe they might have a hand or something like that for people who really didn't want to do that. And, there are people who don't really want to do that, but the vast majority of us are really good at a thing. Like my grandfather said to all my aunts and uncles, find one thing that you are really good at it. Be better than anybody else that you know of at it, or whatever, better than the best you can at it. And you will never wonder where your next meal is going to come from. And it's true. You have to get good. Now, it's the people that spread themselves too thin, which I do too, and a lot of people do, never really get to where they want to get either, for the most part. Unless you're spreading yourself so thin in many different areas or something like that. Or like, I'm not a huge fan of her, but like Oprah said, do what you have to do until you can do what you want to do. Do what you have to do until you do what you want to do. Because you're going to have to probably do something like I do, like DoorDash, for example. I don't really love DoorDash. I don't really, actually the art job is all right, but I don't really love that type of art. But I'm doing that right now just to fund myself enough to get these YouTube channels that I got going. And I've got to do a podcast at some point. I got to do all this other stuff, but I got to have some of this stuff in my corner first before I can put, time into the other things. You got to get yourself set up in one thing, focus on that one thing, and then you can get on to the other thing and stop having these thoughts of, well, my dad wouldn't do this, My dad would just go to work for 12 hours and just suck it up, and, that's what he would do, so that's what I should do. That's, this is the thought process that people have, and if you're going to always have that thought process, you're really probably not going to actually enjoy your occupation ever. Now, if you go to church, they talk about the only occupation is, single life, married life, like priest and nun life or whatever. I don't buy into that. I think that we were put on this. We came here for something. And that gut feeling, I talk about that in, I think, every video of mine, like that gut feeling, that heart feeling, whatever that, that overall feeling, like when you're doing something, when it's not right. Because like DoorDash, I know it's not right, but I got to do it right now. To pay the bills. I know it. I go out there, I'm like, man, I don't want to do this again. And maybe that's my fault too. Maybe I should just know that everything is going to work out and it will work out. See, it's all in the thought processes. If you don't have the right thoughts, you can't create the right life for yourself. If you've constantly got the broke person thoughts, if you're constantly broke in your mind, if you're constantly not able to do something in your mind, if you're constantly talking internally or externally, especially to yourself, because there's actually you have two ears. So there's an ear. It's weird. Like if this is legit. Like if you look up, your ears actually hear you differently than anybody else hears you. And then there's the ear that hears everybody else. So there's that internal ear that hears you, even when you're talking out loud or internally. It hears that voice of yours differently than other people are going to hear it, and it hears it more. Like it really takes it to heart, right? That thought process of yours really takes things to heart more than anything else. So you have to really watch what you say. If your entire life you're telling, well, yeah, I'm broke. I can't afford it. I can't afford that. I can't afford it. I can't do that. No, I can't go do that. I can't go do that. I'll fail. I'll fall off a cliff. Something will happen. The building will burn down. I don't know. You get this all the time. You see this all the time with people. But there are people that have listened to me in the past, and they really, really were happy with themselves that they did. Like, for example, I know I've told this example, but like one of the things is I was working with this woman, and she really wanted to go to Germany. And I told her, so, well, why don't you just go then? Well, the plane will fall out of the sky. I'm like, does that happen very often? I mean, lately it does over, food processing plants, but does that happen very often? She's like, no. I'm like, well, then if that's not going to happen, what's the other thing? I said, maybe you don't have the money. She's like, no, I got the money. It's not about that. I said, well, what is it? I said, maybe it's because Germany started 2 world wars. There's only been two, and they started both of them. No, no, no. I don't think World War III is going to happen. I said, all right, plane is going to fall into the ocean. That's what you're worried. No, it's pretty safe. And she realized how ridiculous it was. I've got plenty of examples like this, but this is the only one I'm going to use here today. She realized how ridiculous that sounded, and she went. And she came back and she jumped on me and gave me a big hug. And she's like, thank you so much. I would never have done this had it not been for you pushing me. And I said, well, I didn't really do anything. I just kind of had a conversation with you, and you did it. And congratulations on that. You did it. You had fun with it. But vocationally, I tell you, just go at least try it out. For example, one of the things, I always wanted to try carpentry. I thought I did, right? I thought I was going to be good at it. So what I did was I actually took a week of vacation at my normal job, and I got hired at this carpentry place, and I didn't like it. I didn't like it. So sometimes you are going to have thoughts of things that you really, really like to do, because I've built, I've built cabinets before, I've built shelves before, I've built clocks before, I've built, boxes. I built a lot of stuff with wood, and I thought, I'll love it. But I didn't. I really didn't like it. I didn't really. It's kind of like I can definitely leave that in the hobby category. I'm happily. But, go try this stuff out. Maybe if you got a bunch of vacation, especially I talk about government workers, I know people have 500 hours of vacation stored up because they don't go do anything. If you really want to do a job, I know this guy who really wants to work for the park systems. Go get hired at the park systems. You've got 30 years, something like that. For this dude has 30 years. Sorry, this camera just keeps going like that. They got 30 years in the post office. They got a ton of years in the military. I guarantee the park system would hire them, and they could just retire there. They could just get one of these jobs that they could retire at, and they could just be happy. I'm like, go get a job there. See if you like it. If you do, just use the rest of your vacation, start the new job, and just never look back. Never look back. I'm not saying that you got to start a business. Maybe people don't want to start a business, but there's got to be something, if you're watching this video, especially with 12, 13 minutes into this, that you want to do. There's got to be something that you want to do. I'm actually going to talk about relationships and stuff like that in a different video. I know for sure I'm going to try to at least post videos on this channel every Sunday, but I see it so much. You see the people, walking around. You see the body language everywhere you go, especially when you go to these jobs. Because I work at DoorDash, and especially when you go into the fast food, you're like, here's your order. There was a drink with that. Here's a cup. You can fill it yourself. Just come back here. It'll be fine. Nobody's gonna care. Just come back here. I don't want to do it. I'm like, I'm not doing that. This is your job. This actually happened to me at Wingstop. And I'm like, that's not my job. I'm not paid. I'm literally paid to pick the stuff up and drop it off. Yeah, but I said, look, I don't care either way. These people are either going to get a drink because you poured it, or they're not going to get one because I'm not doing it. And then the manager gets involved. I said, this person is not filling a drink. This is not my job. It's not my bid. I ain't bid on this. Not doing it. Because you teach people how to treat you in life too. You got to remember that. You teach people how to treat you, and if you treat them, or if you teach them all right, I'll do your job for you, then it'll happen. Now, was she a fan of mine afterwards? Probably not. I don't care. I washed my hands of that one. I didn't pour the drink. She did, and I went on my merry. She was probably even more irritated, but I didn't tell you to get that job. I didn't tell you to start that job. You did. And so you really have to think about this. You really got to, put your foot down in certain circumstances, and you really have to just go about your merry way, because you cannot be a people pleaser and get where you want to go in life. I didn't know that one was coming out. I kind of just let things flow. This thing, driving me crazy. It's probably driving you crazy watching me constantly correct the camera. But yeah, so anyway, I don't really think I have much else to say about this. I probably could talk about this forever, but the examples that I've given, I mean, really, how many examples do you need? Another example was when I worked at this place called Coopersburg Post Office. I had a lot of stories from there, despite the fact that I only worked there for a month. There's a lot of orchards over that way, and this guy lived on an orchard, and it's all he wanted to do was his apple orchard, but he didn't. He hated the post office. He hated that job. We heard about it all day. Hate this place. And I'm like, well, what do you want to do? Well, I just want to work at apples. I said, you live on an apple orchard. Yeah, it's a lot of work. So is this. Yeah, well, I'm like, I never got through to the guy. But I just could not believe the guy lived on an apple orchard. He had apples all the time. Instead of just like making that a living, like, you got your apple butters, you got, especially in PA. PA is known for its apple butters. You got your apple butters, you got your apple cider, you got your regular apples, you could sell your apples, apple pie. I mean, you could take a silo and collect these apples and sell them through the winter. I mean, there's so many things you could have done with these apples. And he told me about it. He had all this stuff and he wouldn't do it. It drove me nuts. But what can you do? I mean, I'm not going to like cattle prod him over there into his own apple orchard. It is unfortunate, but he just never did anything with it. And I don't want that to happen to anybody because it's just so hard to watch. Anyways, that's the video. That is my biggest pet peeve in life, is watching myself and others do stuff that is so just not them, just to make a paycheck, just to please somebody else. Because the reality is, chances are real good that you're only going to get that paycheck to please somebody else. And if you're always constantly going out and getting that paycheck or whatever to please somebody else, you may as well be them. And another thing too is that I wanted to talk about is, if you are constantly living in somebody else's expectations of you, you are never going to actually live your own life. And you have to get out of that web. You have to leave the tribe. But you don't even people don't have to know that you left the tribe. You could just like, oh, okay, that's a good idea. And just go do what you're going to do. And once they see that you really like what you're doing and they see that, it makes money, enough money for them to please them or whatever, then they'll finally get off your back. But until then, you're going to constantly be living in that web of somebody else. And especially if you don't want to end up... Now, if this person that you are trying to emulate is somewhere you want to be, then that's one thing. But most people are trying to emulate somebody that they just don't want to live that way. But they're trying to emulate their existence anyways. And it's just mind-boggling. So if you're living that life and you really want to live that life, fine. But if you're living that life and it's something that you just can't stand, really think about that. And at least put your foot forward in going somewhere that you really want to be. Anyways, said this like 4 times now. That's the end of the video. Like, subscribe, share the video, and I'll talk to you in the next one.